Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dream a Fantastic Dream podcast. This is a bonus episode, and we just got out of seeing Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh
So we wanted
my.
to jump on here and do a spoiler review, kind of just go into our thoughts and our raw reactions, and just really talk about the film because it was a lot.
Oh yeah, it was a lot. Absolutely. Oh boy.
So just off the bat, before we go into the spoilers, what was your first reaction? Like, what was your thoughts on the film, and what do you feel
Mhm.
overall? Like, where would you rank it? Just
Yeah.
what was your feelings on the movie itself?
Non spoiler. So for those of us who are listening who haven't seen it yet, um, I this there was a lot of joy for sure that was felt. Um, my theater was very enthusiastic, so
Must be nice.
there was a lot of energy that was given to us, and we just kind of like ate it up, and I loved that. I did cry.
Okay.
I cried at exactly where you'd expect me to cry. Um, because that's just me. But ooh, I'm trying to think of how to not spoil it. No, it was a big movie. That's the nuts and bolts of it, is that it was a big movie. And I think in some ways that, you know, played to its advantage. And I think in some ways it played to its disadvantages. Um, would I sit on a porch on a Saturday afternoon, like sipping tea as like a chill activity watching this movie? No, I wouldn't, because I feel like I would have to be like, you know, I'm not doing anything tonight. I need something to lift my spirits, something big and epic and fun. And this is what I would watch for that. But it's definitely not chill. You kind of have to be mentally prepared to take it in for sure.
That's interesting because for me it felt chill. Like it felt like
Yeah.
just a vibe. I don't know if it was because I don't know how to not spoil this. Okay.
Yeah, right, right. It's
Just
hard.
thinking
It's
about it.
hard.
Um
No,
it
I see what
was
you mean though. There is some humor in it, can be a little bit more on the mellow
I don't
side.
know if it was because it was characters that were it doesn't, it's weird because it doesn't feel like a really big superhero film.
Okay.
It's very contained, it's very small in
I agree.
scale,
I
but at the same
agree.
time it's huge because there's so much implications to the movie, especially at
There's
the
so
end.
many things. Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that through the entire movie. It feels like its own personal small Spider-Man story until you realize what it is and how
Hmm.
much it opens itself. Like
Yeah.
the third act of the movie, it's like, oh my
I
god.
would say my only advice to anyone going to see it is watch out for the Easter eggs, because this thing is loaded with little Easter
Yeah.
eggs. Loaded. So it was, and I loved it. I loved the little Easter eggs. Um, so that is was another plus for me. I think this movie is a love letter to Spider-Man fans for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. So
So with that being said, this concludes our little spoiler free. If you guys haven't seen the movie, please get out of here. Go away.
yeah,
Just
so
don't do this
well,
to yourself.
yeah, this is your spoiler warning. You can always bookmark the episode on Spotify. You can save the episode on Apple Podcasts for later. Um, if you're on YouTube, this is a great time to stop watching. I'm gonna keep talking, so you have a couple seconds to scroll away and
Do
click
do
that back
do
button.
do do
Do do
do.
do 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 do. Get out, get out. Okay, is it just us? Are we all here?
Nice.
Nice. Okay.
All
Hi, everyone
right.
who's seen the movie. What's up?
Okay, so I took the time to literally write out the entire movie, Act One, Act Two, Act Three, and
Oh
both of the post
God.
credit scenes. So
He
Act
literally texted me. He was
One.
like, right before I sat in the movie, he texted me. He goes, I made a Google Doc. Don't look at it.
I would have
It was right
spoiled the
before
whole
I had seen
thing.
it. You wrote it in great detail. So this will be fun.
Yeah, I think it will be kind of just diving into it. So it
Mhm.
starts off literally right at the end of Far From Home when Mysterio obviously reveals to the world that Peter Parker is in fact Spider-Man.
I was actually grateful for that, because I was wondering to myself, like, if you haven't seen the post credit scene, because there are some noobs out there in the world,
Right.
I was wondering, if you're a noob, did you even watch the post-credit scene of Far From Home? And would you even know what's going on? So I'm
Well, I
glad
mean,
that
the
they put that in
trailers, like
yeah.
it's like I
It's
know that.
implied.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
heavily implied. But for those who are really like brand spanking new, it was nice to have that little thing at the front to kind of just like catch you up real quick on what happened in the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
So
So Peter, MJ, and Ned, they're in a really, it's not a good spot for them. This in the
wait,
beginning of the movie,
can
like
we talk about that scene in May's house?
that's what I was gonna get into when
When
May, yeah, they're
when
like
May
closing
walks
all
in
the
on
blinds, yeah, and May like comes out of the room and she like dumps Happy, and it's just like, oh, okay, so this is
is
it's a
we're
fling,
recording,
okay,
and then they
cool.
walk in on Peter and MJ.
And she's like, "Oh my God, MJ, how's it going? Nice to meet you."
Oh my
And
god, that
then
scene was
everything goes bad.
that scene was so funny. Like the panic and the way that they were able to stage that so perfectly so it looked like an awkward moment was so
Well, it looked like the
beautiful.
way it was cool. It was one shot, like it was,
Yeah.
but it was like panning through the entire like house. But it
Yeah.
felt like one continuous like moment, and it was really really cool how
It
it was
was
like
really good.
staged. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. It was
Um,
so good. That moment made me laugh so hard.
but basically they end up being searched and seized by the police. The
Mhm.
cops break in. They all get interrogated. And the police are like, hey, you guys need a lawyer. It's not going to go well for you guys. Your
Poor
case
Ned.
looks super bad. Yeah, Ned gives himself away. He incriminates himself unknowingly. He's like, yeah, I was Spider-Man's man in the chair. I was watching out for him the
Yeah.
whole time. I knew so long ago he was Spider-Man. And like, oh, so you're an accomplice. He's like, can I just take that back real quick? I mean,
Can you just take everything I said off the record? I thought that was so funny.
so yeah, they lawyer up, and of course it's Matt Murdock,
How
Charlie
was
Cox.
what was your audience's reaction to that?
Um, it was very okay. It was really mixed because I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of people have seen Daredevil.
Hmm.
So it was half quiet, half, oh my God, it's Daredevil.
Yeah. my theater was so funny. They were really loud people, but
Okay.
at the same time they were respectful, which I think is Philly at its finest. Like the way that they reacted to every big cameo was woo! And it was like respectful
Interesting.
applause. It was
Yeah, I didn't
cool.
really have anyone like truly freak out.
Mhm.
I freaked out. I'll get into where I freaked out, but there
Matt
was
Murdock.
one moment.
Mhm.
I did scream during Matt just because of the way they shot it. It like
Yeah,
panned
it was
up through his like
beautiful.
cane and up to, yeah. I was like, oh my God, that is perfectly.
Gorgeous shot.
It was, yeah, it was so
I
well done.
loved so no, actually, I was trying to I'm gonna step back a second. I my theater, I think, had the biggest reaction to Matt Murdock. I think that was the big one, which was interesting considering the rest of the movie. But
Yeah,
the
well, that
biggest
makes sense.
the biggest reaction, I think, was either Matt Murdock or the first big appearance. But and it was so big that I missed his first line. I could not hear the first thing that he said, and maybe like Feige and Marvel and so they probably weren't expecting the reaction to Matt Murdock being so
Oh, they
big.
were. So many people were calling for Matt Murdock to join the MCU
But
since
it was but
Daredevil
like
ended.
they didn't shoot it in a way that a big reaction could be allowed for.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel
it
like
is
with
kind
the
of
last
random the way they put
yeah,
it.
with the other two, you could tell like there was like a kind of moment
Right.
where they kind of just stood there and just stared. So then audiences could freak out and then continue the movie from there. But Matt Murdock just kept talking. So
Yeah, I don't think it was. Yeah, it was staged in an
mhm,
interesting way. I mean,
yeah.
what I honestly find I think this is the most cool, and it's not really even No Way Home, but it's just the fact that Kingpin and Matthew Murdock were literally the same day,
Hmm.
like the way they came out and release schedule. Like
Hmm.
that was so well done. I
Hmm.
applaud you, Marvel Studios. That
They were
was
like, we're not going to leave you questioning whether or
yeah.
not
They're like
it's canon.
they're here. It's fine.
Mhm. They're in the MCU now. Like they're canon.
But
Yep.
basically, they end up winning. And Matt gets Peter out of trouble.
Hmm.
Um, but there's one scene right before that where a brick flies through the room and he catches it from behind
That's
him.
so cool. And Peter at the same time was reaching for it, which
Yeah,
is
well,
really
because his spider sense it, he was trying to get the brick.
exactly.
And and Peter just sits there and he's like, "What the hell? How did you do this?" He's like, I'm a good lawyer."
I think that was a great showcase of Daredevil's skill. And those,
Oh,
and
I'm so
I
excited.
think those who didn't know about Daredevil before, they do now.
Well, it was just
Mm.
it was so well. And you don't expect it either.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so they decided they want to go and lay low because their house is being targeted from all these mobs of people that are trying to get in, just to do with the fact that he is Spider-Man and everyone believes that Mysterio was this like amazing person, even though
Mm. It's
Spider-Man
all a
fought with the
lie.
Avengers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they move in with Happy Hogan, and that's really where everything just starts to take off from there.
Yeah.
So we really move into Act Two. Peter ends up with Doctor Strange.
Okay, I need to talk about the Easter egg though.
Okay,
One thing
yeah,
was that Michelle Jones's second last name is Watson.
yeah,
And
yeah. That is true. Yeah, yeah.
like there was like a good like 10-minute chunk where I got me, a big MJ stan in general, got Michelle Jones Watson and Go Get Him Tiger from Betty of all people, but like that I wasn't that happy about. But we got the Go Get Him Tiger moment and I was like,
Yeah.
oh
I
yeah,
didn't
so
even, if
that
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even notice it.
I
It totally
did.
went over my head just because, like,
Did you see
and it
what I'm
was funny because,
wearing?
like,
I
oh,
was
I know,
so happy. I was so happy.
but yeah. So Peter ends up going to Doctor Strange. Honestly, it was for a really interesting reason that I actually didn't expect. It was due to the
Yeah.
fact that Ned and MJ didn't get into NYT, and he like felt bad about it,
Yeah,
and
he
really
didn't.
wanted to
Yeah.
change the future because of them and not
Mhm.
himself, which is like truly Peter, and
It's
I
such a
really
Peter thing.
respect
Yeah.
him for it. But I was not expecting that.
That I feel like I cried with, not cried, but like I really felt for MJ when, she's in a difficult situation and and Peter probably feels absolutely terrible for, him being the cause of her in that particular situation, but she looks at him and she's like, no, like this is fine. Like
Yeah.
genuinely, like like I could be living hell right now, but I have you and I'm fine. And I was like, girl, I cried. So I loved like that introducing that thing that Peter does where he just like whenever somebody he loves is in distress, he panics. And he does like the extreme
Mm-hmm.
to kind of fix what he broke.
So I actually thought this was really interesting. So Wong allows like the spell to happen, but the trailers make
Mhm.
it like look like he's totally against it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that he was actually the Sorcerer Supreme.
I didn't know that either. I loved that. Go
That makes
Wong.
so much sense though, because of Strange being dusted for 5 years. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they needed a that make okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I see you, Wong, stepping up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud.
Wong stepped up.
So they end up doing the spell and breaking reality, obviously. And they take the energy from that spell and they like contain it into the cube.
Yeah, now we know what the cube is.
Yeah, that's
Ta-da!
it's like the spell energy absorption container thingy.
Yeah.
But just doing like due to the way the spell broke in that like 3-second amount of time, all the
Mm-hmm.
villains were like, I'm coming.
Mm-hmm. I think the way that Strange explained it was that like he kept making exceptions for
Yeah, I kept
people who would
changing.
remember. It kept changing while he was casting it, and he
Mm-hmm.
should have known beforehand. And if he had known beforehand, he would have been able to do it in a clean way. But because it was tampered with, it reversed the effect. So
Yeah,
instead of everyone forgetting Peter,
everyone
everyone knows Peter.
remembered,
Mhm.
came to the, yeah, which is interesting. Even the past like people who had actually died from their like moment in time, which is really
Yeah,
interesting because like both of the other timelines keep going, like they don't stop,
they don't stop.
which
Yeah,
is very interesting. I was like, oh, okay.
and maybe it's from a moment where they resented their individual Peter Parkers the most. Maybe
I don't know. It was
I
just
don't
really
know.
interesting. It was
Yeah,
a cool moment. But he ends up calling Flash of all people. I was like, why, dude? Why'd you call Flash?
Yeah.
And he gets the location of the dean for MIT, and you find out that she's leaving and is trying to hitch a plane ride. So
Uh-huh.
that's why Peter goes to the bridge.
To the bridge.
And then we meet the variant of Doc Ock, where they have the giant fight on the bridge.
That fight was so, I can't swear on the show. That fight was so sick.
The best part was literally him using the nanotech that like went on to Doc Ock to
control them.
The arms.
I screamed. Everyone in my theater screamed. I actually really enjoyed watching this particular Peter Parker take on Doc Ock with the Iron Spider suit. Shout out to my jacket.
Oh yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed watching that. I loved seeing like what makes our Peter in this verse different than the other
did you
ones.
catch the Andrew Garfield reference during
Which
that
one?
fight scene?
What was it?
When the car was hanging, he caught the car and hung it from the bridge.
Yes, multiple times.
I was like, oh my God.
My first thought when the first car fell over, my first thought was Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew.
But yeah,
I found myself going Andrew multiple times in this movie.
Yeah, and due to like him saving the dean from the car, she offers to try to like get him a spot at MIT with MJ and Ned, which I thought was super sweet because he totally deserved it after like everything that's been going on.
When I saw him run out, when I figured out that the reason he was on the bridge was because of the MIT recruiter, I went, oh, this is where he redeems himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I knew it.
And then slowly through the smoke, you see Green Goblin of all people show up, throw the pumpkin bombs, and basically which I thought was cool. It was like a small nod, but it wasn't like a full-on reveal.
Yeah, a lot. My theater also reacted very loudly when Green Goblin was revealed.
Oh, I did too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Peter gets portaled back with Doc Ock being locked in the cage. So you see, it's like a pan shot. You see all the empty cages, and you see Lizard in one of them, and then you see Doc Ock still being controlled by the arms at that point. So they get back in Doctor Strange and Chance Peter's suit, which was really cool to see. And,
that was so cool. I thought that's when the black suit was going to be revealed. I'm not going to lie. I was like, oh, but no, I was wrong.
Yeah. And then Ned and MJ meet up with Peter at the Sanctum. And they basically tell them they need to go and catch all these villains so they can send them back to their respective realities, which is kind of interesting. The Scooby-Doo line.
That's Scooby-Doo line.
Yeah. They see you see actually Norman, it like goes back to Norman. You see him fight against the Green Goblin mask, which I thought was interesting.
That was cool.
Because you could see like the differences between both the characters. And then we get the call from May saying that Green Goblin showed up to Feast and was hanging out with her. So that was
the exact moment when I knew it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
That was the exact moment when I knew.
So obviously he goes back to Feast to try to see what the Green Goblin wanted, because obviously he just tried to kill him. So he was like, why are you hanging out with my aunt? What is going on? And he was like super nice about it, which was weird. He was trying to like figure out how he got to the new universe and like what was going on. And he mentions the fact that there is no Oscorp.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So we don't have one. That's really interesting.
And if we do end up getting a Harry Osborn in some way, shape, or form, it's not going to be the Harry Osborn that we have been used to before.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see if they do it, or or if we even have a Norman in our universe, because we've never seen him, which is really interesting. But Aunt May drives Peter and the Goblin back to the Sanctum, and they reunite with Otto Octavius. And there's like a really cool interaction that happens between the two of them, just like talking about themselves. And I think it was really interesting how like all the characters knew who each other was, and like how they like were in their universe after like one of them died or something. So that was cool to like actually see. Peter leaves and fights Electro with the help of Sandman due to the events of Spider-Man 3. He ends up saving Peter and shields him from the electronic blast, which I thought was really cool. How like they were working together to try to stop Electro, which I wasn't actually expecting. I thought he was also going to turn, because I wasn't sure like where the timeline like stopped for him or whatever. So it was cool to see.
Sandman was very self-focused. Yeah.
I think that was like the, I don't want to say it was underdeveloped,
Yeah.
but there was like definitely like a disconnect between him and Lizard of all people. Like out of
Hmm.
like the Sinister Five, those two were like the most underdeveloped.
Yeah, they
That I
were the
think you
most,
could have
yeah.
like, I don't know if you could have like done more with them, but like there's definitely like stuff that you could have like added.
I feel like with the weight of the movie as is, like I feel like somebody had to get an underdeveloped storyline.
Yeah, no, but it was.
Somebody had to.
I think the characters that they chose to like really go forward with were the people that should have
Oh
been
yeah.
forward.
Excellent. Excellent choices. Yeah.
But the Sandman and Electro are teleported back and locked in the sanctum. And Strange tells people that it's, or tells Peter, sorry, that it's their
Hmm.
duty to die at the hands of Spider-Man. So their like universes can continue.
Hmm.
It's like it's like a special point in time, like the
Hmm.
way Loki died in Avengers. That was a set point in time.
Yeah.
And apparently that was also for them and their universes, which I thought was super interesting. Like they
Hmm.
were supposed to. This wasn't like a small thing. Like this
The
altered
way that the
reality.
yeah, exactly. Hmm.
But of course, Peter thinks he can save them and ends up stealing the cube and fights Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension,
Oh, what a cool
which
scene.
was sick.
That fight was so freaking awesome.
And he ends up stealing Strange's sling ring.
Magic is cool,
Obviously,
but
a
you know what
lot
else is
happened with
cool?
that.
Magic is cool, but you know what else is cool? Math.
No, 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 no.
I like Peter showing off his little brain. I love it.
Yeah. And he leaves Strange trapped inside the mirror dimension for a really long time.
I've been falling for 30 minutes. My sister kept saying that.
Yeah. But Peter frees all of the villains and takes them back to Happy's house where he uses Stark Tech to fix all of the villains, which I thought was a really cool callback.
Mhm.
And like showing them all their technology that we have in the MCU that they don't
Yeah.
have.
Uh-huh.
And you get to see the original arc reactor that Iron Man had from Iron Man 1 that's in
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
But Peter works on Norman Osborn. He works with Norman Osborn and develops the new chip that he puts in Otto Octavius, bringing him back as a hero.
Hmm.
So you can really see the shift in him really quickly, which I thought was
Very
interesting.
quickly.
It
Yeah.
was like 5 seconds. I'm good now. What's up?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of unsure at some points. I was like, well, is he still motivated? And then, he kind of played an anti-hero role at that point, I feel like.
There's something that happens later on where I thought he was a villain and then wasn't, and I was like, oh,
Same.
okay.
Yeah.
But Peter makes a chest device to try to contain Electro's energy and store it so it doesn't end up coming out and like, affecting people and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it's like a dial, so every like 5 or so minutes, another part of the dial will turn green, storing it inside of him.
Hmm.
But they create a cure for Norman, but he decides to go against it
Hmm.
due to the goblin side of him coming out. And in that chaos, the lizard escapes and Norman attacks Peter and fights him, causing all the villains to escape the penthouse.
Hmm.
And a really intense fight scene. I was
Oh,
thoroughly impressed. Like the
that
way
was
they shot it, it
so
was
deep. Yeah.
so good. And they end up destroying the building to pretty much just rubble. It was basically just
Hmm.
ash at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and I was shocked that Norman completely overpowered Peter.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't even a fight. He like it
Yeah.
was easy for him.
Hmm.
And he blows up the apartment, and of course, he kills Aunt May.
Oh, yeah. And it was interesting because I had heard that rumor, and I I had heard my little plot leak information that I had heard was that MJ was gonna die.
Okay.
And then I heard after the show, for the premiere, that there was only one death. And so I thought like, oh, it's MJ. And then you told me, no, it's not MJ. And I was like, thank God, because I did not want MJ to die. With my whole chest, I did not want her to die. So um I figured it would be May. And then when she got up, I thought,
Yeah, I was like, how are you
I was like, I'm like, she's
good?
supposed to die. Are they
I
about
kind
to
of thought it
walk
was
out
like
of
a
here?
fake out, but I was confused. I
Yeah.
was like, I know May's gonna die, but like, when
She
is she
started
gonna die?
when she said the thing.
With great power comes
It's
great
great responsibility.
responsibility.
When she said it, I was like, oh, she dying now.
Oh,
She dying soon.
it was, it was hard to watch
Mhm.
Peter like react to the death, and of course, Happy like at that exact moment shows up
Uh-huh.
in the wreckage, and he gets arrested by the police officers, even though they should know who he is at this point. Like,
At this point, yeah. And I think it's just because of how bad Spider-Man continues to look that,
well, yeah, probably that makes sense. But like,
yeah.
it's like he is one of the biggest people in the country, probably at that point. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, so Peter ends up going into hiding just because of kind of like the outcry of everything that's going on and like the people that he's affecting.
Yeah.
Um, and you see the Daily Bugle like reacting to
And
the
that with
huge
that
fight.
rain shot
Yeah, the
was
rain shot from the
gorgeous.
trailer. Yeah. Um,
Gorgeous.
and it really looks like he is made the enemy of the destruction, even though he had nothing to do with it. Well, I mean, I guess he did, but like it wasn't his fault. Where he literally like J. Jonah Jameson was watching like the lizard climb on top of the building, Electro attack, Spider-Man, like Sandman attack, like literally everything that was going against him. He was like, "Oh, it's fine. He deserves it." I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
what?
Right. Yeah.
I think that's my biggest issue that I have with like him as a character is just like the hatred that he has for such an innocent kid. That's like, dude,
You
you
need
need
to
to
chill
think,
out.
yeah, you need to
I
back
love
off.
that beginning shot that was literally in his freaking living room with a green screen. I
Oh
love
yeah,
that.
yeah, that was every
So
YouTuber
funny.
ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving into like Act 3, in an attempt to find Peter. This was cool. Ned
I loved
uses the
this.
sling ring to bring back Peter Parker.
Okay, so here's how I experienced this, right? So we're watching, right? Ned has the little thing on the ring,
The
the
sling
sling ring.
ring.
And I'm thinking to myself, that can't possibly do anything, right? That doesn't do anything. And he said it was clever. He made a wish and it started to happen. And I was like, oh, that's cute. But then he actually did it. And
Very easily.
I flipped out. And then
You see a little tracking shot in the middle of an empty alleyway.
Literally. You see
And there's a person that's slowly walking towards the camera, and you're like, there's no way. And then the theme starts playing, and you're like, okay.
Let me say it. I was like, that dude is too tall to be Tom Holland. I was like, I hit my sister and I was like, he is too big. That's not Tom. And I literally was like, that's Andrew Garfield. I'm like, that's Andrew. I knew it. I flipped out. Man, that dude, I was like, that Spider-Man is way too tall. Way too tall.
And he like swings through.
He walks right in and he takes the mask, and it's the suit. It's Andrew's suit. Right?
Yeah, it was the same one from Spider-Man 2.
At this point, we're all screaming. And then he takes the mask off, and it's Andrew with his disheveled face and messy hair. And we scream again, and he's just standing there like, yeah, I'm Andrew Garfield. And like, he spends the next like 5 minutes being like, yeah, I'm Andrew Garfield.
Like, prove to us you're Peter Parker. And he like hangs from the ceiling. He's like, is this good enough for you guys? Like, what do you need? He's like, oh, can you clean my cobwebs from the ceiling? So he like crawls
That was cute.
over.
That was funny. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. Always a woman of color who is a grandmother will always not care, which I love. So that was cute. And I just loved like watching my little angsty boy back.
But they try to bring back Peter again, and of course it is Tobey Maguire.
And at that point they were like, okay, let's try one more time. And everybody went, ooh, in my theater. Everyone was like, oh, and then Tobey showed up, and then all the millennials screamed. And dude, he looks old.
It fits the role though. Like it works for what they're going for.
Old. It was so, and I'm glad that it worked, but dude, he's freaking old.
He's like Peter B. Parker, bro.
Yeah, he's well on his way to being a Peter B at this point.
I love how they like flipped at the same time though.
Oh, that was cool. I loved watching that miniature, like not fight, but like interaction between the Spidey interaction between the two of them.
When they both shot their webs at each other.
I was like, ooh! I was like, I like had a little giggle moment where I was like, oh, this is happening. This is cool.
But yeah, so they team up and they go to find Tom. Of course, he's sitting on top of the rooftop where he's known to hang out or whatever. And he actually Tom is trying to use the cube to kill all the villains. And Toby stops him, and they talk about like everyone they have lost. Like, and they bring up Peter or Ben Parker. They bring up like everyone from their universes, and Andrew brings up Gwen Stacy.
When that was so
and I
sad.
was like, oh, we're going
Ouchie.
there. That hurts.
Ouchie.
And
I kind of want to give a little shout out to my MVP of this movie, which I think really added a lot of heart to it, was actually Tom and Zendaya's like tender moments that they shared.
Yeah.
I don't know how improv they were, but like I find that like these moments were made more special because you had the way that they cared for each other so much.
Oh yeah. You really see the progression between Far From Home and No Way Home.
Absolutely, like a big difference. Like when I don't think I could have watched Tom meet Andrew and Toby without first having Ned and MJ, and like with her like little kiss on the cheek, and then she hugs him real tight, and like MJ's the one holding the cube, he's the one standing by her like that. I just feel like you kind of we needed to have that first to kind of build him up a little bit, and then we had the three of them meet for the first time. I thought that was perfect.
And I think what the really cool thing was, like, there's like a unanimous, like, I don't want to say gathering, but like they all realize at like one time that their calling is with great power comes great responsibility, and they all realize it at the same time. And it was like, oh, all these deaths like mean like this signifies that you are Peter Parker. And I was like, oh my god. But
it's so I think it's kind of cool how like May is his Uncle Ben.
Yeah, I mean,
that was interesting to me because we've all been wondering like what happened to Uncle Ben. We don't need to know.
If you think about it, here's the thing: if you watch Spider-Verse, every one of their Uncle Bens is a different character.
It's a different character, exactly.
It's not all Uncle Ben. It's like one of Gwen's is her best friend Peter.
Miles is Aaron.
Yeah. But so then the robot one is like a flea or something.
Something like
that.
Like
an animal or something. But yeah, it's like all these different characters.
Yeah.
They decide their best bet is to go back to the lab. I thought this was so cool, like all of them working in the same like laboratory, like to create the cures and stuff. It felt really Andrew Garfield, like working. Oh my god, I that was probably one of my favorite scenes, was just them monologuing about like everything that they've been through, and like them like talking about their web shooters, and obviously like Toby doesn't have them, and how he like shot it across the room, like, oh my god.
Oh yeah, that was so fun. That was so funny, of like those moments of like, dude, this is coming out of you.
They're like, any other places it comes out of? And I was like, oh,
Tom. I feel Tom Holland, man, that line was delivered so.
And you just see Toby like, no.
You cannot deliver that. You cannot just say that. Like, you have to deliver that super specifically to not make it weird. And that was so well done by the three of them. I was kind of waiting for that. Like, I'll mention this later on the scaffold, but
okay.
I really did like watching the three of them do their little lab work to figure out how to, and it was nice with all three minds combined. How they like, you don't, and I think the big argument is that Stark Tech is bad, or like people don't want to see Stark Tech anymore. Apparently some Spider-Man fans don't want to see it anymore, but I enjoyed how it took like Toby's mind, Toby's experience, Andrew's experience, and then Tom's experience with Stark Tech, all three of them coming together to make this successful.
But if you think about it, they were all working on separate things. So Tom was, I don't remember what Tom was doing. Toby was working on the cure for the lizard.
Yeah.
And Electro.
Andrew did Lizard.
Yeah, I think Tom did Electro because he was.
Tom did Electro. That was the arc reactor. Yeah.
And then Toby was doing the Sandman and I think Green Goblin.
Yeah. They each did it for their own villains. I think.
Which was really cool to see. Like, I really liked that. But obviously they go to the Statue of Liberty. And he's like, Tom has this like really special, like endearing moment when he's talking like J. Jonah Jameson. And he's like, hey, if you guys are seeing it, like, just wish me luck because I'm gonna
Mhm.
need it. And I was like, oh yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
But they all
Oh, they also talked about in the lab, they talked about I'm the one who has to bring up the love plots here because you're just skipping over all of my favorite moments.
oh sorry.
I loved when MJ and Peter had their moment in the lab. I just love MJ and Peter. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I don't notice a
And
lot of it
we
because
got
like
a
it.
little, yeah, we got a little update on, what's going on with, because a part of the point of this movie is that Andrew and Toby's storylines didn't feel finished, especially on the romance end. I feel like especially their love plots were left so unfinished. Um, and they kind of did it in a way that wasn't disrespectful to their endings of their
Yeah,
previous
yeah.
movies. So it's like Andrew was like, "No, I haven't moved on. Like I've been like focusing on me, or not focusing on him because
No,
his
he was
mental health is
focusing on Spider-Man. He wasn't
on
focusing
Spider-Man.
on
His
and
mental
on
health is
himself.
absolute crap, as we learned. But and Toby was like, he's still with Toby's still with MJ, which is
And he has a
crazy.
kid.
They didn't talk about that though, right?
No, he hints at it. But if you like,
Okay.
I was actually if you
I was
earlier
waiting
this
for it.
earlier, yeah, he has May Parker.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't catch that.
yeah, he has a daughter.
Mm.
Um, but I think the coolest thing, at least like around them, was when they were all on the scaffolding talking about their own villains and like who they had
Mhm.
fought.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They were like, so what? Who's
What's your
your
craziest villain that
craziest
you guys have?
villain?
And they bring up Venom,
Mm-hmm.
they bring up Rhino, and Tom brings up
Then
Thanos.
Thanos.
He's like,
He's
I'm
like,
into
yeah,
space.
I fought a purple dude in space, and Toby's like, I'm just impressed that
He's
he's like,
like,
I'm just talking about the space part.
he's like, you've been to space? That's so cool, dude.
Andrew was like, I suck. I just fought a Russian dude in a rhino suit, and we lost it. Everybody died, but that led to like I think my favorite line, which was, "No, man, you're amazing.
Oh, they
You're
were simping over each
amazing.
other. It was
You're
so funny.
amazing."
Andrew was like simping over Tom, and I was like, what is happening?
Andrew was like, I love you guys, and they were like,
Thanks, man. I
thank you.
appreciate it. But it's so funny because it's so Andrew.
And such an Andrew
Like it
thing, yeah.
works so well.
He did it so he killed it, man. He crushed it. But it was I loved that, like, no, don't hurt you. Don't. Toby's like, you are amazing.
It's like that's all I've been wanting to hear for the past 10 years. But yeah, so all the villains come and they fail because they're like trying to take out each individual villain on their own because
Mhm.
they've never had a team before. That's like not something
Yeah.
that like they've
They're not
actively
used to
worked
it.
with. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom a
Um
little bit. Oh, is the Avengers a band? Is that what?
yeah, that's what I was yeah, so basically
Yeah.
like Tom takes control and he's like, "Hey, I've been part of the Avengers. I will gladly lead you guys into battle." And he's like he brings up the Avengers, yeah, and he's like, "Wait, are the Avengers a band? I don't know who they are."
I know. I love that Toby had a classic old people moment. You're with the Avengers? What does that mean?
What is the Avengers?
That's such an old people thing to do, is be like, wow,
It's
I
so
don't know what you're
meta.
talking about.
It's so meta.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because like their universes don't have that,
They
which
don't
is
line up.
very
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. I mean, there was like a really long time where I'm like, why wouldn't the Avengers like be like I figured they'd be different characters, but like I feel like they should be at every timeline. Like
I feel like without Tony Stark doing what he did specifically in that moment.
fair, okay.
Yeah.
But there's got to be like because we had the Guardians of Multiverse and like and What If and there was like other
Yeah.
stuff too, but like there was
Mhm.
other groups of like teams and stuff, and obviously
But
the
like
Asgardians.
Avengers. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the Revengers.
The
The
Revengers.
Revengers.
Oh God.
But yeah, so Tom sits them down and takes control, and like they figure out like how they're gonna like fight all the villains and stuff. So they first take out Sandman and turn him back into the human form using the reverse collider, which I thought was really cool. How they like they sunk him down all the way to the bottom of the Empire or the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty,
Yeah.
and then like the ash and like the dust turned him into a human,
Mhm.
which I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool.
I loved that. That was so full circle for me.
Yeah,
That
I
was
kind of like
very
reversed it.
satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they tried taking out Electro, but like he overpowers all of them. Like he's
Mhm.
so strong at that point. and Doc Ock shows up and grabs all the Peters with the tentacles. I'm like, oh god, he's gonna kill them all and help
Right.
Electro. But he grabs the arc reactor, and I'm like, oh, he's not with him.
I
It
love
was
that.
so cool to
I
like
like that we had a
actually
moment of
see
like,
him come back.
uh-oh.
I was like, oh, but
Mhm.
yeah. But Andrew shuts him down, and tells him like how happy he is to like see him after all this time. And I
Yeah.
thought it was like really wholesome to like sympathize with that villain at that time.
Mhm.
And it was like a really touching moment. And then we get the Miles Morales reference, and he's like, I
Where,
wonder.
yeah, Electro basically like sees Andrew unmasked, and he's like, "Man, I looked up to Spider-Man. Your demeanor, you were so like strong. You cared for the poor people. Man, I thought you were black."
Yeah.
My
He's like, oh, I'm sorry, man.
My Philadelphia theater laughed so hard at that line. Like that line killed in
It's
my
so
town.
funny because Andrew looked so upset that he wasn't black. And I
He was
was
like,
like,
"Oh,
that's so
I'm
funny.
sorry, man." Like that was hilarious. And then he said, "No, like multiverse, like there's a black Spider-Man out there, right?" And my whole theater just literally just snapped. Everybody just snapped. You're like, aha, yes.
And then Ned opens a portal, and they get attacked by the lizard, and which obviously ends up with them being chased, which is like really reminiscent of the Andrew scene in the library, which I thought was really
Yeah,
cool.
that felt like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it
absolutely.
felt like it a lot.
This was the point where my heart stopped beating for 2 seconds when they came onto the scaffolding around the
Yeah.
statue. Mhm.
So they end up using the serum on the lizard, that Andrew had made, and they start turning it back to his human form, and that's when we open another portal, and Doctor Strange comes back because Ned's
Mhm.
now a sorcerer or whatever,
Yep.
which is very interesting. And the Green Goblin shows up in that exact moment, blows up the Statue of Liberty, and
Mhm.
blows up the cube because when he throws the bomb got stuck in the
Stuck in the
box
queue. It got stuck in the box.
and
Yep, the
it
one that's
blew
supposed
it
to
up.
reverse everything.
And then that's when MJ falls off the scaffolding,
Mhm.
and you see Tom go after her, and they have the same exact shot.
Same
But the
shot.
Green
Yeah.
Goblin grabs him, and of course, it is none
That
other than Andrew Garfield.
ah I was literally holding my sister and I went, Andrew, Andrew, Andrew. And then he jumped in and he did it, you guys.
It was it was such a it was such a good moment to see
He
him like
literally he looked up without even hesitating. He looked up, he jumped, he webbed her, he grabbed her, he landed, and my whole theater went, yeah.
and you could like see it in his eye. MJ was kind of confused. He was like, why are you so happy? And he was like,
Yeah.
I
He
just
he
redeemed
was
myself.
crying. Andrew
Yeah.
was like, yeah, good, man. I'm really good. Like, I'm sure that he's never been more mentally sane in his life than in that moment.
I mean, yeah, it's been years for him. I would assume, like,
Probably it's been a long time. Yeah.
since Gwen's death. So I mean, I'm
Mhm.
sure that like had an effect on him. Like, hey, I just now saved this other person that meant
Yeah.
so much to someone else.
Mhm.
But Peter ends up blowing up Goblin's glider with his own bomb, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, I
Mhm.
did not expect to see his own weaponry used against him,
Mhm.
which sends them both crashing to the ground. And then Peter beats the absolute shit
Oh
out of
my
the
god.
goblin.
I'm gonna mention this later too. I love seeing Peter is growing up the wrong word here, maturing. Like I'm literally watching the naivete leave his face. Like I'm watching the more like the second from when he lost May and the more that he fights Green Goblin, I'm literally seeing the childhood leave him, the child in him leave.
Yeah, you see him very much mature in the matter of like five
Yeah.
seconds.
When he's kicking Green Goblin's butt. Yeah.
It was intense. Like it
It was really intense.
it's one of those moments where you're kind of like you're in it, but at the same time you're like, oh my god,
Mhm.
like this doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
And I know when they were shooting that one scene, when Tom finished, they both fell over because they were so exhausted, and that
Yeah.
makes sense to why.
Mhm.
But obviously he grabs the glider, and tries to kill Green Goblin, and then Toby stops him,
Mhm.
and he lets go. And I was like, that is really amazing that Toby was able to stop Tom from
Mhm.
going over the edge.
Without
And
saying anything, and I
he
love
did not
that.
say anything. It was completely quiet, but you could
Mhm.
see all the pain that Tom was feeling.
Mhm.
Just like leave him, and it was
Yeah,
really
it
beautiful.
was powerful. Yeah,
And I wasn't expecting this, but Goblin stabs Toby, and he falls
I
over and takes the
everybody
cure and
went like,
stabs
ah,
Green Goblin.
yeah.
So he was able to come back as Norman Osborn.
That was it. Was it? One of my fan theories was, or everybody's fan theory at one point was that if Toby comes in the movie, he could die. He could be the one
I
big
was,
death.
yeah, that's what I was. Well,
So
at the
I
same
thought
time,
for sure he was gonna die. I was like, oh, Toby's dying. I
I
kind of
kind
don't
of,
want him to.
I kind of thought it was actually going to be Andrew, because I
No,
heard that they were going to do Spider-Man 4 with Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire.
no, don't kill Andrew.
So there was like a whole thing about Andrew Garfield actually being the one to pass on. So I was kind of
No,
surprised.
not Andrew.
And the
Yeah.
Peter goes back up to Doctor Strange and decides to let him redo the spell to close all the portals, because at that point everything is open, all the multiverses are
He
colliding.
said, he said, is that real or am I dead? And Andrew looks up and sees like the literal, like, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The literal like crack in reality. And he goes, no, no, that's real.
And you can see all these like characters from like the Spider-Man like movies and franchises start to come through, but they're like all the ghosts and stuff, which I thought was an interesting kind of play.
Yeah.
I know you could see Rhino in one of them. You could
Mhm.
see Hobgoblin. I don't remember the other ones you could see, but there was a lot of characters, and I think
Yeah.
there was other ones that weren't related to Spider-Man either. There was
Mhm.
like what I thought was an Asgardian.
I thought I saw Korg for a hot second. I'm not gonna lie to you.
That would have been sick, like
Maybe I just see Korg everywhere.
an alternate reality version of Korg.
Oh, I love Korg.
But there was like a really touching moment where he is talking to Doctor Strange and he's like explaining to him like what's gonna happen if he decides to do this. And he's like, yes, I'm ready. This is
Mhm.
what I need to do.
Yeah, the
And
original spell was everyone's gonna forget Peter Parker. And so he says,
yeah,
let's do that and close the portal. Yeah.
and Doctor Strange gives this really touching goodbye. And
Mhm.
you see the pain in Doctor Strange that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
You see him actually like really upset with what's
Mhm.
going on. And I was like, oh, this is a
Mhm.
whole different side that I wish we would have gotten all these movies that he's been around the MCU, because it's like
Mhm.
there's so much progression with like how much he cares about Peter, and I didn't know that.
Okay, I'm gonna revisit that comment in the part that you know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, but I'm gonna save that my comment to that for later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And then after that, that's when
yeah, he meets up with MJ and Ned.
MJ and Ned.
And there's a really touching moment with Ned where he gives him the handshake and he basically is like goodbye.
Yeah.
And I'll let you take over this because I know how much it affected
Oh
you.
my God, this scene, I'm like almost on the verge of tears now thinking about it. Like I there's Tom Holland has this method where when he's acting, he repeats a phrase in his head, which is what spawned "I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go" in Infinity War, and that's why this movie shot up to right under Infinity War for me. Was she said, "What if I see you and I don't remember? I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that," and I lost. Like, there's a reason why the repetition of phrases triggers emotion, because there's a certain like aspect of begging and like knowing it's going to happen, but like you think if you keep saying it you can stop it. um and you could tell it in her voice, like she was
She was pleading
desperate
with
for a
him.
way. She was pleading with him to stop, to not have that happen. And it broke, oh God, it broke my heart. um And I felt like throughout most of the movie that there was an "I love you" coming. I felt it multiple times. Like there were so many opportunities where she could have said it, and I was like, that would have been a nice place to do it. But when she said it, I bawled my eyes out because I bet she wished she had said it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of, it's because MJ's had such growth where she went from, if you expect to be disappointed, you're never going to be disappointed, to having such optimism in the face of this like utter doom, that she won't let him say he loves her back because she knows they'll find each other and he can say it back to her.
Yeah.
And that, like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
But yeah, so obviously Doctor Strange does the spell. All the villains disappear.
A beautiful last kiss in the sun, might I add. A gorgeous scene. So beautiful.
It was good.
No wonder they started dating after this movie. Good Lord.
And you see both the Peters kind of like look up at the sky, like kind of just reminisce that they were all together at this one moment in time, and they all got to share this really special thing, even though it was like really bad. And they both disappear while like they're like kind of holding on to each other, and I thought
they got
it was
a hug.
Really, it was beautiful. Yeah,
the three of them got one last hug, which was nice. I was very grateful for that.
So there's like a small time jump, and Peter heads back to the coffee shop where they all were hanging out, trying to get their MIT letters. And he's like preparing this note, and he's like going over it and over it because he wants to like reintroduce himself to MJ.
He wants to tell her.
Yeah, like, he wants to tell her about everything.
He was like, I know you don't know me. And I was like, oh, he's going to tell her. This might get weird.
But he just asked for the coffee, and he watches as Ned also comes in too. But
I thought Ned and MJ were going to kiss. I was like, if she fell in love with Ned, I'm going to scream. I was like, don't do this to me.
So yeah,
but she's still single, so I'm fine.
They go to the back. He opens the MIT letter. They talk about how they both got in. And you see kind of like not really pain, but you see Peter acknowledge the fact that he is an issue. He thinks of himself as a problem, and he doesn't want to redo that for them again. So, and every opportunity that he had to tell them that, hey, I know who you guys are, he stops himself and he's like, no, I have to let them be.
They're better off.
They're better off without
I'm
me.
Gonna cry again. That's so Tobey Maguire too. That's so Tobey.
And you see that they have this moment where they revisit the phrase, if I think of everything negative, like nothing bad will happen. Like
if I expect
the worst,
I expect to be disappointed, I will never be disappointed.
And you see Tom like cut her off and finish the line, and you're like, oh, it hits a lot deeper.
That hurt.
And he kind of just smiles and walks away. And that was it with them. And then we pick up with Tom at his Aunt May's grave, and Happy shows up, and they kind of like talk to each other about like how they knew each other. Like Happy was curious because he was in love with May, and Tom just tells him like, hey,
met through Spider-Man.
We met through Spider-Man, and he was like, yeah, I get that. Like my best friend had just died, and this is the grief that I feel and the pain that I've had for so long, and now this is happening again. Talking about Tony, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like Peter also feels that. He understands not just his aunt, but now Tony Stark too. Like it's crazy. In the final scene, he moves into this new apartment, and it's kind of cool to see how much like Peter has grown, and like has moved on from the situation, has accepted the fact that, hey, I need to start like doing everything on my own because I have nothing else.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
And you find out that he's created a new suit, and you see the new Spider-Man suit.
I'm sure many Spider-Man fans were very satisfied with that because Toby and Andrew made their suits. And
it was very comic accurate.
Yeah, the issue with the MCU Spidey was that he was given these things, but he didn't. And like Far From Home was like, they were like, well, but like this time he actually made it, just like Toby and Andrew did. So
right.
I hope they're happy.
He then leaps out the window and goes to work as Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And that was Far From or No Way Home. It
No Way
was
Home.
it was a moment. It was a very big moment in cinematic history. Over 20 years of storytelling.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm gonna dive into the post-credit scenes a little
Yep.
bit.
Let's do it.
This one, I will argue, this one was huge. Okay.
Oh my God. Oh my
So
God. I'll tell you what I said after you finish
it
it.
picks up right at the end of Venom Let There Be Carnage as they get transported into this universe, and they're sitting at this bar, and Venom and Eddie are talking about like all the new heroes and stuff that are in the MCU, and they're talking
Mhm.
about the Avengers, and they're talking about how Hulk's a stupid name and all these characters, and they're kind of arguing back and forth. And he Eddie brings up the fact that he's like, hey, we should track down Spider-Man and kind of like get to the bottom of everything that's like going on in this universe. And like Venom like pulls him back, and that's when they get transported back because obviously Doctor Strange uses the spell to take them back to
Mhm.
their original universes.
Yep.
And what do you know? On the counter of the bar, part of the Venom symbiote is now in the MCU.
And the last shot is literally it just growing a little bit. The first thing I said was Tom Holland signed that contract knowing exactly what he was getting himself into.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that was the reason he signed the contract. I just know it because we saw some darkness come out in Tom's Peter in this movie. And now that he is left with nothing, like left with actually nothing, this is a great time to delve into that darkness a little
And
bit.
the Russo brothers were at the red carpet premiere for Spider-Man No Way Home, and they were asked about, hey, you guys ever going to do Secret Wars? And they just smiled.
Oh
In
God.
the comics, that's when he gets the symbiote, was Secret
The
Wars.
Secret Wars. Oh geez.
So here we go. It's
Oh my
coming.
God.
All the universes are coming together.
If you thought Tom Holland's Peter Parker was emotionally wrecked before, just wait.
You ain't seen nothing yet, kids.
Oh yeah.
And the final, oh boy.
You wrote way too much for this. Okay.
Well, I mapped out the whole trailer.
You wrote so much.
We got the first Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness trailer, and oh my
Oh
god,
Lord. Oh my God.
that
That
looked
was
good.
insane.
That looked good. So it
Mhm.
starts where you hear a voiceover from Wrong telling him that you can't cast that spell; it's going to do so much damage, and
Mhm.
everyone like forgets that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and how like they truly messed it with space time. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh god, here we go.
Mhm.
Um, and Doctor Strange comes through, and he's like, the multiverse is a concept that we know frighteningly
Frighteningly
little
little
about,
about. Yep.
which was in the trailer for No Way Home. But to see
And it
that,
was in No Way Home as well. It was in the movie.
yeah, but to see that, start the other movie is like,
Yeah.
oh, so we're
Mhm.
going deep.
Yeah.
But you see a shot of Strange looking at the destroyed watch from the first film, and he's like terrified. And I was like, oh
Mhm.
geez, we're going back to Christine Palmer.
Oh yes, we are.
All that trauma. Can't wait for
Mhm.
that. And you hear a voiceover from Mordo, and he's talking about how in the first movie, how like all the crimes from like breaking the reality won't go unpunished because you're breaking space time. It goes
Mhm.
against natural law.
Yeah.
But Strange runs out into the alleyway that's completely destroyed. What I thought honestly was the mirror dimension. I could be wrong, but it looked like it was the cover of the mirror dimension and how everything was like wrapped around it.
Mhm.
And Strange says that it was the only way that he could have kept the reality, safe.
Yeah.
And none of it was meant to happen. And you see a shot of Wanda using her chaos magic
Mhm.
at some sort of wedding. I'm really interested to see who it
Yeah.
actually is.
Mhm.
Um, I thought Wanda was getting married, but then I realized it wasn't her at all.
Wasn't Wanda, yeah.
So I'm kind of confused to who
Mhm.
that could be. But we get our first shot of America Chavez from the upcoming Miss Marvel show, um, and an image of Wong being tortured, I think, which
Mhm.
was really unsettling to me. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
you can't do my boy like that.
Mhm.
But we cut to the countryside exactly at the end of WandaVision, where she's kind of like hanging out, and Doctor Strange goes to find her, uh, and she's been waiting for him to show up. She's been
Mhm.
anticipating this meetup, and Doctor Strange tells her that it's he knows the mistakes that she made and like the pain that she's caused to everyone in Westview, and he's like, I'm not here to talk about that. I don't
Mhm.
care. That's not important. What's important is, do you know anything about the multiverse? And she
Mhm.
just changes. Her whole like misdemeanor is like gone.
Mhm.
um so obviously she does, because she has the dark hold and she's looking for
Mhm.
her kid. So I'm interested to see where that plot point goes,
Mhm.
and if it like starts the Young Avengers or whatever it does.
Mhm.
But we see a shot from what looks like you know the first Doctor Strange, where the whole sanctum is basically being destroyed,
Mhm.
and I'm really interested to see like where that goes.
Mhm.
But there's like a weird beacon which is like draining power, and I think that's why we get who we get later on.
Mhm.
Mordo appears and he tells Strange that he's sorry and like he hopes he understands, and like a huge giant like black cloud takes over the whole Temple of Comertage,
Mhm.
which is very dark. And I kind of like that vibe of this movie, is like it feels very, very bad.
Mhm.
This whole like movie just, I think it's gonna get worse and worse. And I know they're adding like a bunch of like characters from like X-Men and all these like really popular things, but I think it's gonna be a very dark film, which
Yeah.
I kind of dig that, honestly.
Mhm.
And you see Wanda like sitting in the middle of an altar, like levitating during a ritual, which that's probably my favorite shot of Wanda that I've ever seen up until this
Mhm.
point. I love Wanda so much, to see her like do this like really dark magic. Yes,
Mhm.
please. Um, but we cut back to Mordo like fighting Strange, and the whole like temple blows up, and all the sorcerers go flying. And Wanda looks absolutely terrified. I'm very intrigued to see what happens
Mhm.
in that shot in the scene. Um, and I don't know if you know who this is, but we get a really clear view of Shuma Gorath, which
I
is
did
like
not see that. No.
it's like the giant eyeball tentacle
Oh yeah,
monster.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yes, 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 yes. That.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was the big thing from What If, the giant arm
Yeah.
tentacle thing. That was
Yeah.
the same monster from What If.
Mhm.
But we're getting like a smaller version of it. Basically, its whole like power is like he wants to kill America Chavez because she's like this very powerful being.
Mhm.
And if he drains her energy, he basically controls the entire multiverse. He's basically Kang, but a very dark version of that.
Uh-huh.
And it ends with the temple, basically like a whole like white portal. I don't know where it's going, but we see the evil Doctor Strange from What If, uh,
Mm.
looking like he's gonna fight our version of Doctor Strange, which I thought
Yeah.
was sick.
Mhm.
I really like that version. So overall, I dug it. I thought it was sick. What are you
You
thinking?
were you were more excited about the Doctor Strange trailer than you were about the entire movie.
Uh, uh
You because you texted me one word after the movie, and then after the post credit, you called me and you were like, "Dude!"
yeah, I mean,
So,
yeah. It's
and
not that I
also in that you wrote 2 pages of content for the Doctor Strange trailer.
well, yeah, I wanted to get everything in it. Like, if we're gonna
Yeah,
talk about it, we might as well get it all out.
yeah.
But
You're
like,
very excited for that movie.
oh, 100, that's probably what I'm most excited for. I was most excited for Spider-Man No Way
Yeah.
Home.
The whole trailer went by so fast for me because I was so overwhelmed from the movie that I was just like, Wanda, monsters, evil Doctor Strange. That's
For
pretty
me,
much
it went
all
like
that I caught.
it went really slow for me, because like I guess for it was really, it's, I don't know, it's one of those I didn't connect to the first part of the movie, and I think that's what kind of took me out of it.
Mhm.
Was like it was so hard to like really get into, because it was so messy in the beginning, and I really
Mhm.
wasn't, it didn't invest me like I should have been.
Yeah, I think that
And I feel
it
like that's
didn't.
a very like, it's a very low like percent of people that probably feel like this, because a lot of people are like, this is like the best movie ever, and I do think it's really good. But I
Mhm.
think it's good after the midway, like halfway through is like when it actually like I connected to it. But even then, I wasn't like invested in like the death scene or the whole MJ and Peter scene. I honestly kind of blocked that out of my memory. Like I kind of
Yeah,
forgot
no
it happened.
kidding.
I don't know why. Like it was, super important, but
Mm.
I, yeah, and what was weird was like that I kind of like hit a really low when we were watching like the movie, and like during the end fight scene I almost fell asleep, which I've never
Yeah.
done. And during
Mm.
that fight scene I was like, why of all places?
That, yeah, because I was completely captivated by that. The only part where I felt like falling asleep was during the Electro and Sandman moment, where it just like the action, the like from the bridge on, the pacing is like it's so high energy that that moment just felt like nothing to me. That just felt boring to me.
I thought it was needed because like
Mhm.
it like built their characters in this new
It
world.
did. It did. And I'm not going to say that it didn't. I was bored though. It was a little bit too low for my liking. I wish they had explained it in a way that was a little bit more exciting, but it brought me down a little bit.
So overall, like what would you rank this movie, and like would you recommend it? What are you thinking?
My favorite movie of the MCU is Infinity War, and I'm putting it right under Infinity War.
Okay. Um I I'm gonna be real. I kind of give it like a 7 out of 10. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed the later half, like I said, but like the first half of the movie, I was not invested. I really wanted to be, but I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was because of the pacing or like the way it started, and it was like boom, we're here, and it was like it felt like it was jumping back too many times to different scenes, and they felt so fast
Mm-hmm.
that it was hard for me to really get
It was
into it.
fast. It was fast. The whole premise of the movie that in the trailers was that like what happens now that Peter's a murderer? And that whole bit was like maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, and it was like I thought that was supposed to be the like the overall like gist of the film. It wasn't even more than like 10 minutes, and I was
Yeah.
like, dude, this is a
It
two and a
short
half hour
caused
movie.
everything, but they didn't talk about it all that much. Like literally Daredevil was like, all right, you're good. And that was
Yeah, it was what a 2 minute scene, I think
yeah.
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, I was so excited for Charlie Cox to come back, and he was like not even in it for 3 minutes, and I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
under. I was it kind of hurt honestly, but
No, he was there for what he needed to be there for. Like he
yeah,
needed
they
to be
originally
introduced and he needed to be introduced in a big way.
well
So
they
throw
originally had a
him.
whole court scene
Mhm.
where he was fighting with Peter in the courtroom, which I thought would have been
Yeah.
sick.
Oh, in the interrogation room.
No, in a court scene with the judge.
Because I saw photoshops of like when he's in that in the holding. I wish that
That
they had
wasn't
put him in
him.
there. I wish they
Yeah.
had put him in there though.
No,
That
basically
would
they
have been a
had a
good
whole
place.
like 10-minute scene where he was basically trying to fight the judge,
Yeah,
and
the
like there
whole
were
movie is like
yeah.
we're pushing 3 hours here, so I see why they cut it. If it was going to be in there, I see why it is not.
Yeah, but overall I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd rank it higher than Homecoming just because of how like I think it really, brought the character to life. And
Mm-hmm.
it threw things at me that I wasn't expecting, especially with like the villains and stuff. But I I dug what they did with the villains. I thought it was
Oh
sick.
yeah, the villains was great. Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else?
Um, it is 2 a.m.
Yeah, get on out of here.
Yeah, I have work early in the morning too, so
But yeah,
yeah, I'm tired.
definitely check out No Way Home if you haven't seen it.
If you
Definitely
haven't,
worth it.
I really hope if you haven't seen it that you're not at this point of the
Yeah, I know.
podcast. I really hope you've seen it if you're at this point of the podcast. If yeah,
I mean, if you like being spoiled, then there you go, I guess. But
yeah,
I hope we kind of lightly got into it. I think we covered a
lightly,
lot. Yeah, we covered a lot.
we deep dove into this thing.
This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And as always, Spider-Man No
Dream.
Way Home. Just
Oh
kidding.
wow.
The soups.
Dream a fantastic dream.